So we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Intercessor's Companion. Today I'm going to be exploring the type of dreams that we have, how to record them, and introduce the Romans 1:20 model, which actually is how I've been introducing symbols to you and types. So let's start with the Romans 1:20 model, and then we'll get stuck in, and towards the end we'll actually look at some personal examples to help you visualize how to record your dreams, with a little challenge at the end. So let's see how we get on. So over time, reading the Bible, you never know what you're going to come across, and eventually I came across Romans 1:20, and in it talks about how the invisible attributes of God, His divine nature and eternal power, can be seen and understood by what has been made, so that we are without excuse. So what does that really mean? To me, it means that everything that has been created has a purpose. It glorifies God in some way. It gives insight, prophetic insight into how God works and human nature. Now, some people have cottoned on to some parts of this, and others not so much. My thoughts really are that over time, when I'm dreaming, to be able to look at something in nature that has been created, that is living, or even that is dead or decaying, and we have this in a dream, it shows aspects or nuances to a dream that we may not have previously thought about. So if we can see His divine nature in everything, imagine how broad and how deep that can be. Now, so when I have introduced some symbols previously, I have given quite good examples, I think, of, for example, when we dream, we might dream in a symbol that others will see generally as meaning one thing. But if there is variety in that symbol, then sometimes, more often than not, the type of symbol is really important. For example, in the last episode, I talked about how we have dogs in the UK, and you can see them everywhere. Every type, from the tiniest Chihuahua to the largest Mastiff, or I'm trying to think of one larger than a Mastiff, but you get my drift. And each of those has a particular purpose in life. And so again, things that have been created can speak to us personally. It can be a symbolic message about a person that we are dealing with, having a challenge with, a friendship with. We could talk about ourselves and our own personal call or gifting or talent for the workplace or church. It can speak of resilience, it can speak of being tough, it can speak of being vulnerable or a good friend. And so the Romans 1:20 model really is been the guiding light for me being able to then go into scripture and also understand dreams when I can't find the right scripture. But I go back to the Romans 1:20 model and say, well, if it says that His divine nature and eternal power can be seen and understood by what has been made, then I'm going to meditate upon what I have seen in my dreams. I'm going to research some of the symbolism, as in, what does this naturally do in life? Or what has been created by humans and for what purpose? And how can I relate to that in the dream? So that's the foundation of where I have personally gained insight into dreams. Saying that, we now have to have a way to record our dreams. Now, I'm a writer by just, I was going to say by trade, but I like to write everything down. I like to research, I write everything, I type everything, it's long form, not short form. But occasionally I've had dreams where I've scribbled stuff down and the writing is illegible. You cannot read it. I cannot record a dream. And I'm thinking that I'm writing in perfect script, and I can't read it and I can't record the dream, and I've lost that dream. And I know that they were very profound at the time. Other times, for some reason, I would have pencils near my bed, and I have drawn a picture. Very childish. I'm no artist, by the way, and you don't need to be either. But there are ways that we can record our dreams that will help us later, because sometimes the words just don't come to you. So if you can draw like a snapshot of the dream, that really helps. So there are different ways to record your dreams, and some of them are the simplest of ones. Pencil and paper, or pen and paper. You can record on a dictaphone that is now on a mobile phone, but years ago it was a separate voice recorder. You can record with a gentle light beside your bed so that it's, doesn't disturb you too much, or the person that may be sleeping in the next room. And then we've got drawing dreams. So, like I just referred to, we can draw symbols and flow charts to try and help record the flow of the dream. It started with a crown and it pointed to a sun, and then it ended up with something else. So there are so many different ways to record dreams. You don't have to be stuck doing one thing, and especially if you struggle, especially writing, because sometimes there is so much detail. And if we can get the essence of the dream and the most important detail, we can often trigger a memory of that dream and then fill in the detail later. And I find that just being open to whichever method is available, saying that you've got the colours, you've got the crayons or whatever available, do what feels right on the time, but experiment with it. You might be surprised. So I'm going to put up on the screen in a bit a picture that I drew. And this is way back. When did this? 2005. So I've just got a note here. And it was, in the dream, I had seen boats, and it was actually submarines emerging from the waters on the coast of the UK. Remember, this is 2005. I had no idea about anything. Over 20 years now since that dream. And there was attacks, so toward the border from boats, and it was in 2004. So you have a look now. So as you can see, it was a very childlike drawing. I had written on there clearly attack on our borders from the sea. In 2005, I had no idea about what's going on in the world. I just draw what I saw and I put it away. And literally, I only pulled it out last year and said, oh my gosh. If you know anything about the UK, we've had an influx of migrants seeking help and asylum coming on these dinghies from France. And so I dreamt of this 20 years ago, and I had no idea that it was a prophetic dream. And you pray, when you see something like that, because it's a submarine, you think war. And 20 years later, the insight, because of the outworking in real time, of saying, oh my gosh, I'm praying against an invasion of sorts, not understanding that obviously that I didn't get enough insight through prayer, but I was given a starting point in the dream. So it was an amazing thing. So we never know when we're recording something what the outworking of that is going to be. And I can say that I probably didn't pray enough into that, because I just didn't know what else to pray, because it just obviously was more of a war dream, not a warfare dream, but it was inside, but it looked like war, and it just seemed so far-fetched. And back then I was very new into moving in the prophetic in 2005. So I was only a couple of years been introduced to it, well, maybe a year and a half. And I was having these type of dreams all the time, and I just didn't know how to handle it. So I did draw it down, and now we see 20 years later, the meaning of that dream is quite stark when you look at what's going on in the UK right now. And then the next one I wanted to look at was recording a dream. It's another pictorial dream, but it's a flow map. It's actually as if I was looking from above, looking down, and I drew out the action of the dream. So it was a warfare dream. It was very much attack, shooting, dodging bullets, getting people to safety and that sort of thing. But I drew it from above. So take a look now, and then we'll continue. So as you can see, I had drew movement arrows of where things had happened. I'd made some notes because it would be too difficult to write that all down in just fluid sentences, and that worked for me. And so that's another way that we can record our dreams, especially we get a lot more information in these flow recordings than we would if we were trying to write it by hand. So that was an interesting one, and something that you can, just like a flow chart. When you're at school, you're just like, you're making a mind map or a type of flow chart where how one thing connects to another thing in sequence. So we could do those too. And then there was another one that I had, that, which is an easy one, but it's the type of dream as well. So in the first dream, where I drew the boat or the submarine, and that ended up being a prophetic dream that required intercession. All dreams require intercession, but that was very specific for the nation. The second dream was a warfare dream, and I didn't quite get it because it was, like a movie adventure type thriller. So I prayed over that generally, but it was a warfare dream that needed prayer. And the next one I'm going to talk about is called a processing dream. So I'm combining both the types of dream and ways to record them, because this was a simple one. So if you look up, right now I'm going to put up the next one, and it's just a short paragraph, and then we'll go from there. So in this one you can see that I had dreamt of vampires and werewolves fighting each other. Nothing new for me. I've always been interested in science fiction and supernatural TV programming. So from when I was young, I was just always watching that stuff. But I hadn't been watching any of that at that time. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is interesting. So vampires and werewolves. I could find meaning. If I wanted to find meaning, I can find it. I can guarantee you I've got a whole teaching on vampires and werewolves. But in this one, what's interesting is that I had to really think about, why did I have this dream on that night? And I took a moment to recall, what was I doing the night before? So this is really important, because not every dream is prophetic. Not every dream is going to be about you or someone else. So this dream, I call it a processing dream. So sometimes, just through the randomness of the day, our brain notices things and logs it away and just needs to make sense of it, get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. But sometimes that comes out in dreams. On this occasion, I was able to remember and recall that the day before there was an advert for a new film that was coming out. I think it was called Underworld Evolutions. And that's about an ancient war between vampires and werewolves and bloodlines and stuff. And so that advert had come out the day before, and it had worked into my consciousness, had pushed it forward and turned it into a dream. So I was processing what I had previously seen, and it actually didn't mean anything at all. So that's a different type of dream. And you can see that was just a handwritten short paragraph. So brilliant for just writing that down. And when did I have that one? That one was about 2009. So that was quite interesting. So we have the Romans 120 model where everything can be learned from, but we also need to learn how we work and how to distinguish the difference between what is a useful dream, what requires greater study, or what requires understanding, and then how we can interpret those dreams. In this case, there was no interpretation. It was just a matter of taking a step back and pondering upon, what did I do the day before? Was I listening to music? Was I watching a film? Was I reading a book that may have triggered something? I mean, I've had a different dream, very similar situation, but in this dream, Mel Gibson was in the dream, and in the dream he had got shot in the head, and I woke up and I said, oh my gosh, I was so shocked. And again, I remember that I had a couple of days earlier watched a film with Mel Gibson in it, and so Mel Gibson had been slotted in to a very complex dream, but he himself meant nothing in the dream. It was just something that my brain had slotted in, and so I had to extract that part of the dream, because I was able to say, okay, I did watch a film and it had him in it, so I was able to take that out. And you know, for those of you that don't watch a lot of television, great, it makes it easier. But when you're younger, your brain will still recall things and put things in from stuff that you've read, or advertising that you've seen on the tube or at a bus stop. You know, there's always going to be something that your brain will pop in every now and again, just to see if you're paying attention. So, you know, keep that in mind as you're recording the dreams and trying to understand them. The last one today I want to do is one of a bit of a challenge. So this is a what I would call a biblical dream. So I've had a few of those, and it just, at the time, you're thinking, what on earth is this? Yes, it's prophetic. It's got prophetic insight. It is a biblical dream, and you'll see why. So I'm going to put that on the screen, take a moment, and then we'll go from there. So, as you can see, I had a dream where I went to a farmyard and there was a pen. In the pen was both sheep and pigs. The strange thing was that they all started mating. And stranger still was the fact that the sheep weren't mating with sheep, they were mating with pigs. Now, if you are just very basic in the Bible, or no Bible at all, his invisible attributes, his divine nature and eternal power can be seen and understood by what has been made, so that we are without excuse. So you tell me, is it natural for pigs to mount sheep? And what does that mean biblically? That's the challenge for today. I'm not giving you the answer, you give me. So there are some examples of ways to record your dream, and I hope you like to, what I've done is put my personal examples out there so that you can go back over and look, pause. I don't mind you reading them, there's nothing there to revealing of other people that I've dreamt about. So I've tried to pick ones that are vague enough that, you know, it doesn't mention anyone personally, to help you. The ones that are helpful, ones that demonstrate what I'm trying to say. So do take the time to go back over and look at them. And I just think, you know, Ecclesiastes 3:11 says that God has planted eternity in the heart of every man. And I think we need to get comfortable with that. I think God is always trying to communicate with us. And we put everything in front of that. We wrap up that God sensor. And like, it's you ever had a smoke alarm that keeps on beeping? Beep, beep, beep. No matter what you do, that thing will not go off. You can't take the battery out and it stop beeping. It has a flashing light. You can wrap it up and you can still hear the beep, beep, beep. We have a God sensor. And we may think that we've become disconnected from God. through our activities and the old-fashioned word sin, or the dirty word, but it's not. It's just the activities and choices that we make, the lifestyle that we have, the things that we participate in. They are like wrapping up that smoke alarm and trying to not hear it, say that it can't sense. I don't want it to sense what I'm doing. I don't want it to see or hear what I'm doing. And that's sometimes what we do with God. And I think that, God put an eternity in the heart of every man. I would say is our conscience. I say the God conscience, because why else would it be there? Once we made a decision to do something, the conscience doesn't really, after a while, become loud. It becomes subdued, like being wrapped up and smothered to subdue the noise and to not see that flashing warning, like warning, 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 stop what you're doing, go a different direction, put the fire out. And we have these tools to be able to help us grow, understand the divine communication, because ultimately God communicates to everybody, and he is always drawing us and saying, come to me, let's have a conversation, come to me, let's talk. And if you're not going to talk to God directly, you can pick up the Bible. You don't have to. Unlike myself, I was so in awe of the Bible and respected the Bible to such a degree that I was fearful of even handling it. And it took a long time of growing and going to the right church to say, no, you can look at the Bible, you can learn it, you can underline words, and it can be a more personal experience, and you can discover stuff there. There was, I think in the first episode, I shared my testimony where I opened up the Bible and it opened up a particular scripture, Luke 10:19, for when I was going through night terrors and dark visitations, and it spoke to my situation. Dead on, spot on. So, God is wooing us constantly, always communicating, and he's not going to give up. And so I think it does us well to take time to look at his word, look at imagery, but give ourselves a break. Remember this model. It works. We have things that are biblical imagery, we have things that are personal imagery, things that we see in everyday life, we have cultural imagery. So take time to try out some of these ways of recording your dreams and see if you notice a difference in how much you actually recall. Sometimes your drawing may not seem very detailed, but when you go back to it, when you've got time and you're relaxed, you'll find that it will trigger more information. Oh yeah, I do remember that, and it linked to this, linked to this, linked to this. And then you will be able to write exactly what happened as a story, as a short paragraph or a page, and get inside that way, and then know how to pray. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was a short one, compact, and I hope very useful. So in the next episode, I think we're going to be looking at the history of dreams. So I'm referring here to my plan. So I think we've tick, 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 and we're about here. So we'll see how we get on. But we do have the history of dreams, which I'd like to go over, because when you realise that humanity has been dreaming for the longest time, and it goes back thousands of years, it's brilliant. And not only that, we're then going to explore how to handle confidential mail. So I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Happy dreaming.